Thank you for having me. So yeah, my name is Wiza Jalakasi. I am the Vice President of Global Developer Relations at Chipper Cash. Chipper Cash is the largest cross-border mobile money network in Africa. We currently allow about 3.8 million people who are located in 9 African countries to be able to send money to each other, as well as to the United Kingdom. And very soon we're going to be looking into the rest of the European Union. So the company was co-founded about 2.5 years ago by a Ghanaian gentleman, as well as a Ugandan gentleman, both based in San Francisco. And since then, we have been able to grow the business to process about $800 million since inception in total processed volume. And at present, we are processing between $50 to $100 million every month in both local peer-to-peer or cross-border transactions. You can think of us most closely as a Cash App in the United States, or something like a Monzo or Revolut in the United Kingdom or in the EU, except that we don't position ourselves as a bank in many of the markets that we operate in, even though we have some of the functionality that banks typically might offer in the European Union. So we are a team of 109 people now, globally distributed. The bulk of the team is based here on the continent, but we have team members from San Francisco to all the way on the left-hand side to Perth in Australia, all the way on the right-hand side. So it's a very globally distributed team. We have team members in Berlin, we have team members in Bogota, and we are very, very excited to be working in this way. It has been a very interesting period over the last year because with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of companies were forced to go remote, and we had to really jump on that opportunity. It's been fantastic for the global payments industry because here on the continent, a lot of people were moving towards digital payments. So I wanted to do a quick product demo to show you how it works, but I just set up Zoom on this laptop, and I need to restart my Zoom process to be able to grant permission to share the screen. Bridget, will you excuse me for just 1 minute while I do that? Is that okay?
That's
no
okay.
problem, of course.
Okay, thank you. I'll rejoin in just 1 minute. I just need to restart the application to grant the permission.
And
no problem.
Just a quick one also to our peer group, why we have Wiza here on board today. We have seen also in the last board meeting, we discussed things, for example, like AP, and AP is also seen. So we studied currently with, but in the end, on the globe, multiple other companies and multiple other regions have started to do cross-border transactions, have tackled the topic of different setups. And this is why we want to have Wiza in the room, because they have really enabled something that we do not have on the table and on our radar normally. So that's the reason why we said, okay, let's take a look into the African economy, into the African payment industry. We have been there in contact with multiple companies and selecting one by one to really get interesting inputs like today of 5-10 minutes, and also to have inspiration for our payment pioneers here. What is new, what works, and what can we actually learn from the region there? So Wiza, back to you. I see you are on board again.
Yes. Let me now share my screen.
Excellent.
Okay. Please let me know if you're able to see it.
We see it, and you are up and live. Let's go.
Fantastic.
A lovely background.
Thank you very much. So yeah, basically users will have the Chipper wallet on their home screen. We try to implement global security standards, so you can authenticate with a PIN. You can also authenticate with Face ID. In my case, I'm going to authenticate with Face ID. So it's a very simple interface. Over here, I can see my transaction history. I can send money to other Chipper users in other countries. So say, for example, I go here to send. The most recent person that I sent money to was Jean Kaitare, who's at the top there. He has got the Kenyan flag on the left-hand side. That shows the country that they belong to. But you see, from my contacts, I can send to anybody who is in any country who is on the Chipper network. So say, for example, Hassan is in Uganda, Abi is in Ghana, etc. We try to just make it very, very simple so that a phone number is the destination bank account. In this case, I'm going to send money to Jean. I'm going to send him 200, and I'll indicate test that hopefully he pays me back. And yeah, just as simple as that. Once I execute this send action, he is then able to cash out into his bank account or cash out into his mobile money or send that money to other Chipper Cash users, or he can use it within the network to be able to do other things. Some of the functionality that we are bringing to Africa for the first time is cryptocurrency purchase. So with the Chipper Cash wallet in selected countries for selected users who have gone through enhanced KYC, we enable them to buy cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum only within the app in a sandbox manner. So they don't have to understand the technical details of how a blockchain works. They don't have to understand the technical details of how a wallet works, etc. It's usually very simple and straightforward. So we just launched Ethereum as well. So we're allowing people to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum in this way using their existing payment methods in country. We also have plans to launch fractional investing in US stocks. It's very similar to how Robinhood in the US works. And we're very excited about this feature, but it's not something that we currently have live. Apart from that, you can also use your Chipper wallets to buy prepaid airtime at a discounted rate, as well as buy data bundles, mobile data packages at a discounted rate across about 4 or 5 African markets that we have the feature live in. So this is the primary use that people have for Chipper. And then once the money is in the wallet, they can cash out to various existing payment rail layers. For example, in Kenya, you can cash out to any bank account in Kenya, and you can also cash out to M-Pesa, which is the largest mobile money network in East Africa. So that's very much how our application works. It's very simple, designed to make it as easy as possible for people who have never used these type of applications. I want to end my screen share now. And that's how we have been able to grow in all of these different markets. Our plans for the rest of the year are to integrate more with the European Union, because we see that there are quite a number of African diaspora who are based there. And we want to make it as easy as possible for those people to send money back home. We are already doing this in the United Kingdom, and we have seen quite a bit of growth ever since we launched this program, this product in January of this year. And we're excited to see what we can do more in the European Union. In terms of what we can learn from each other, I think a lot of our simplicity in the model, we borrowed a lot of ideas from what we saw in implementation, specifically in Revolut. We're going to be launching our own Chipper card, a physical card as well as a virtual card. And we saw how quickly the digital finance industry was able to take off in the European Union. We also borrowed from the mechanisms of electronic KYC. Before, we had not seen any tangible examples of people in the industry using facial recognition as well as photo recognition of physical documents for electronic KYC. And we've been able to work with the regulators in some of these markets to make those standards more applicable. In terms of what I think the EU can borrow from us, there are some very sophisticated mechanisms that exist in certain African countries for financial services. For example, in Nigeria, every individual is given what is known as a BVN number, stands for bank verification number. And this is a central bank issued identifier, electronic identifier, through which you can access any bank financial service, any financial service. It doesn't even have to be bank-led, simply with that BVN number and then OTP, one-time password, which is sent to your mobile phone. So in this way, you see that the Nigerian financial services ecosystem is one of the fastest growing in emerging markets across the world. Just last week, a Nigerian payments company, Flutterwave, announced a $160 million investment round at a $1 billion valuation. And this type of growth, a company that didn't exist 5 years ago in Nigeria, this type of growth is only made possible because of the maturity of the central bank standards for digital finance. Another thing that is really exciting in Nigeria as well is that all of the bank transfers between different banks are settled in real time through the Nigerian interbank payment system, NIMS. So when you send a bank transfer from one Nigerian bank account to another, a lot of the people expect it rightly to be instant. I was very surprised to learn that in some parts of Europe and in the US especially, when you send money, it can take 2 to 3 days to settle. It's a very foreign concept for me. I find it's very, very remarkable. And also, I think there's quite a bit that Europe could borrow from Africa in terms of how we've implemented the mobile money system. For those who may not be familiar, there's a bit of an echo. I'm not sure if I'm still clearly audible.
We will take care of that. Let me check.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. For those who may not be familiar, mobile money is essentially very similar to the way bank accounts work, but instead of having a specific bank account number, you use your phone number as an identifier. The biggest and most successful example of this is, of course, M-Pesa in Kenya, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, which processes about 45% to 60% of Kenya's GDP every year electronically. This is an amount well in excess of $25 billion. The model works with reliance on agent networks. So you can think of an agent as a human ATM. And for example, in Kenya, there are 180,000 of these people distributed all over the country. So at an agent network, at any point in time, you can either go to them with cash and have them convert that cash into electronic value. And similarly, you can go to them with electronic value and have that converted to cash. I've not seen any quite equivalents in the few European countries that I've been to. I've only been to the United Kingdom, France, and Spain, but I've not seen anything that is so similar in terms of how it works and how it operates. And M-Pesa specifically in Kenya has got what I would describe as ubiquity to the point of invisibility. It is everywhere so much that it is nowhere. It is something that is assumed. If you meet somebody in the street and you want to pay them, and you ask them for the phone number, they automatically know that you intend to pay them with M-Pesa, and they're like very comfortable and they're very attuned to it. In many cases, they would actually prefer that to having cash, because cash can be high risk in some of these markets. And yeah, that's a bit about what I wanted to share. I can see that there are some questions in the chat. Bridget, will you allow me to take them directly very quickly?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. So the one from Benedict, understand correctly, you are sending within the users of the apps before you can send receive funds. So yes, we are essentially a wallet. We have a large compliance team. The bulk of the team now, I mentioned we're 109 people. About 50 of them are legal, risk, and compliance individuals. I don't have the specifics of the exact standards that we use, but our anti-money laundering policy was put in place by a leading global expert. Her name is Lisa Dawson. She was formerly the head of global treasury at Citibank in New York, and she also worked with the US Treasury for about 10 years. So I believe that we are extremely compliant in this way. I cannot speak to the specifics and the standards because I'm not a compliance person, but we do have a pretty robust anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, and compliance policies that we enforce across all of our markets of operation. And we also do extensive enhanced KYC on all of our partners before we launch into new markets. I would be happy to get into a more detailed conversation about this with you, Benedict. I can connect you to the right people on our team if it's something that's relevant, but like I don't feel particularly qualified to comment on the specifics at this time. There was another question from Igor about the banking license. So yes, in all of the markets of operation, we have what is known as a payment service provider license. It's not the same as a bank charter. The regulatory environment in Africa is very fragmented. So in some countries, you need a payment service provider license. In some other countries, the same license is known as a financial service provider license. In some markets like Ethiopia, where we're not currently present, the only way we could go is if we partner with a bank that has got an existing license and they sponsor us. And essentially all of the funds that we collect on behalf of users have to be held in a trust with them.
That's our... It's not very favorable.
Sorry? Am I still audible?
That's okay. No,
yes.
Somebody new joined and wasn't on mute.
Okay.
Sorry, Wiza, for that.
No problem. No problem. No problem. I was just making sure. And then, yes, so we operate in this way. In some of the larger African markets, we're looking towards obtaining our own bank license. So for example, in South Africa and in Kenya, we are hoping to get a microfinance bank license, and this will enable us to offer a wider suite of features and also increase the transaction limits in our app. At present, users cannot transact any more than the equivalent of $9,999 per day because of the AML limits that have been enforced by the compliance team. Can users send cryptocurrencies to others? No. At present, we are not allowing users to do on-chain transactions on the blockchain. But we have this in our future roadmap, and I think within the next quarter or so, we will allow people in certain markets to receive and send cryptocurrencies. The reason for this is not technical, but it's only operational in nature. We're trying to frame cryptocurrencies as a speculative asset and not a currency, so that we can work with the exchanges and securities commissions in some of these markets, as opposed to the central bank, whose requirements would likely be stricter. So it's technically possible, but we don't enable it for that reason. Is the target audience in Europe expats, or is the goal to fully operate also for EU citizens? That would be fantastic. I think at this point, our market entry strategy is to enable Africans in the diaspora to send money back home. But who knows? I mean, it's been an interesting journey. 3 years ago, this company was not there. Most recently, in November, we raised a $30 million investment round with participation from some of the finest fintech investors in the world, as well as Jeff Bezos' personal fund, Bezos Expeditions. Their first African investment was with us. So I think we have really strong partners. And if we're able to make the product work for the European Union, then I'm happy to have it as a market. But for now, our mission is very much to make it easier for Africans to move money around, because it's a problem that we have experienced personally. In terms of expansion roadmap, yes. So I am currently leading some of the expansion initiatives. We are looking at Australia next. That's our next major market. And then in the European Union, we're working with some French partners who hopefully will give us the right license to be able to allow people to send money from the entire EU. That is likely to be ready before the end of this year, and we should have both markets up and running before then. The last question from Max: which developments are key factors for your success today? What is the thing that we did that had the biggest impact? So I think the thing that we really got right, that other players may not have managed to the extent that we did, was to really understand our user base. So we are targeting people who are probably first-time smartphone owners, who are highly skeptical of digital finance and digital services in nature. And we're abstracting a lot of the complexity of how these systems actually work for them to make it as simple as, using the apps that they're most familiar with. So here on the continent, if you look at smartphone users, the #1 app that they know is either WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So we wanted to make it as easy as using those apps to send money. So we used familiar concepts that the users are familiar with. So, they're very familiar with the idea of their contacts. They're very familiar that they can engage with their contacts in certain ways. And through that, we've been able to build what I would say is a pretty impressive business in a space which is heavily commoditized. Mobile finance in Africa is not a new thing. There have been mobile money players operating for a very long time, but we have been able to differentiate ourselves because of that focus on the user experience and really leading with empathy and making it as simple as possible for people to transact. In terms of replicating the same philosophy to the EU, I think consumers in the EU are generally more sophisticated. They've been exposed to mobile and internet for a much longer time. The biggest advantage that we could possibly bring there would be being able to compete perhaps on features and price. And especially on the area of cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies are a new phenomenon globally, and there are very few people here who can claim to be cryptocurrency experts. I do not even claim to be a cryptocurrency expert. If we can make it as easy as possible for a specific audience in the EU who have never been exposed, who are still skeptical about cryptocurrency, to be able to buy and easily invest, especially by framing it as an investment asset, as opposed to a liquidity tool, I think we certainly have a significant opportunity there. And I'm very open to having conversations with ideal partners in the EU who can help us to experiment and move that needle. that mandate falls under me and my team. So it's something that we'll be very excited to explore. But at present, our mission remains to make it as easy as possible for Africans to move money around.
Wiza, may I jump into here? So
sure.
First, many thanks also for moderating yourself. That's great. And for picking up the questions. To be honest, it's truly impressive. I have two questions perhaps also for our audience on top of technology. So the first one is, why do you focus also with your impressive setup of VCs or venture capitalists that you have, not on the US market or, for example, US market normally? And why have you chosen EU? So that's one question. And second, perhaps, can you also let us know, who are you looking for? So who do you want to collaborate? For example, if you go into the EU market, is there a potential for our stakeholders that you have seen in the beginning? Is there anybody where you say, hey guys, I want to work with you together to make a win-win situation? Or is it something where you say you are on a track alone, basically as Chipper Cash, and taking a look at the market? Both is fine, but that's something definitely interesting for us here.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll start with the first question. We look at the US as it's a very large market, obviously, but there's quite a number of sophisticated players. And at this point, we don't believe that we can bring an offering to the market that has a competitive edge that would allow us to win a specific category. Now, we are going to launch in the US, specifically for the same remittance feature. There is a very large African diaspora presence in the United States that's actually already on our roadmap. But we are not seeing it as the quote unquote breadwinner that will make Chipper Cash what it is today. Also, our US-based investors, they have the relationships in place for us to be able to easily experiment there. But the reason that they invested in us is also because they feel as though the United States fintech space is getting a little bit crowded. Apart from that, the legacy infrastructure is still a bit archaic. So when we do our remittance product, we capitalize on the fact that you can consume that money instantly. And in the United States, instant payments are still quite a bit of a long way away from becoming standard. So, you know, that's our general feeling around that area. If things change, definitely we may reconsider it. But, you know, jumping onto this, the second question, why is the EU more attractive? You know, there are many more African immigrants in EU countries than there are in the United States, based on our research. Also, the relationships between European countries and African countries, they are more bilateral in nature, and there's a lot of industrial trade that takes place between the two continents. So for us, it's a clear, obvious gap that needs to be addressed. And then also the fragmentation similarity. When you look at Africa as a continent, it is a continent, but it's also 54 countries. When you look at the European Union, it is a continent, but there are also many different countries with many different cultures. And I think even though the Eurozone is a single currency zone, there are some nuances and cultural behaviors that affect when and how people send money that we feel we are more similarly attuned to than in the United States. So I guess for us, it's about, we really have the ambitions to be a global company, but we know where we want to start and we know how we want to start, and we can continue from there. In terms of partnerships, absolutely. There was a comment made at the start of the presentation that said there's nobody in payments that does it alone. I very much believe this. My mandate is also to open up the Chipper Network APIs, which will allow other people to integrate their digital financial services and make them interoperable with Chipper Cash. We are very much a business that is built on partnerships. We don't believe in trying to do it alone. We believe in making a bigger pie for everybody to consume. And to that extent, I'm very happy to speak to, in order of priority, number one, our licensed partners in the EU who can enable us to build a remittance business on top of their rails, especially more so if they have the ability to store value, because Chipper, again, is a wallet. So there are two components. There's the remittance component and then the wallet component. And then secondly, which is also very interesting, are partners who would allow us to issue cards. We're already in talks with Visa for the United States, where we'll be able to issue USD cards in some of our jurisdictions. But it would be wonderful if we could also figure out whether we can make it possible for our users in the UK and the EU to issue euro-denominated virtual cards. That would be something that would be very fantastic. And then lastly, any players who are in the cryptocurrency space, especially offering trust services or liquidity services, such that if we're here in Africa, for every Bitcoin that is held, that the user buys in the app, even though we represent it as a virtual balance, in the back end, we must also buy the equivalent in Bitcoin and hold it and have that auditable in a way. So I'm looking for partners who can offer us this service also in the European Union, and then we can be able to assess and see how best we can work together.
Super, thanks. And there are, I think, a lot of people in the room that basically can at least support it. Birgit already posted it. Is there any other question? Because I have the feeling that the people in the room actually somehow understand quite well, due to your excellent presentation, how you're set up. I see here one question. How can I invest? Which ticket sizes do you offer? Okay, so I would say we connect you afterwards, but of course you're open to discuss it on site. Birgit, back to you, I think.
Okay, then thank you very much, Wiza. We will connect you to everybody in the room, but also to our peer group. And thank you very much that you, spoke about your company, and really very impressive. And also a big thank to the AWO, to Raphael Rasinger, and also to Eric, because they coordinated that you are here today. And we are very happy that you joined us. And now we switch into Germany. Therefore, it's a question whether you stay or you leave, I think, because it's not so understandable when we change into German. Thank you very much to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to being in touch with you all. Please enjoy the rest of your days and stay safe out there.